Hello and welcome back to the ShefF1 podcast. Today we're going to be talking all things Qatar Grand Prix. I'm of course joined by Amy to dissect another enthralling, crucial weekend. First of all, how are you after a bit of a McLaren disaster class that has blown the title wide open once again?
Yeah, absolutely. There was comments made by Max at the beginning of the week that if it was him in this car, he would have already won this championship. And I do believe that statement if it was a car run by his team. I think the McLaren team have been a massive part of why this championship isn't already won. I mean, we could talk as simple as if it went for the disqualification in you know in Las Vegas, it would have been won by Lando by now. And there's so many more decisions that have gone on throughout this year where you just look at and you think, would that have happened in any other team? No. But I will give some lenience towards McLaren where I think, um, Max would never understand what a two team. He doesn't know what a team is. He's in a one-man team. So I will give like some grace to McLaren because it is hard. Making decisions on when you've never got a number one driver. Do I think that's the best approach now to Formula One? No, but it's certainly fair and it's a difficult task to do. But that has ultimately been, I think, what's caused them to go down to Abu Dhabi. This should have been wrapped up earlier, but it makes it more exciting for us. So thank you, McLaren, in another way. But yeah, for me as a Lando fan, even though he had a terrible weekend, I don't think he was the better. Well, I wouldn't say terrible, but he was definitely the worst driver out of the two, and that's not been the case since really Monza. So yeah, I think ultimately though, with Max winning, it kind of benefits Lando more. If it was Oscar, then it'd be a lot closer points wise, and we know McLaren would somehow find a way to mess that up. So yeah, I think it's kind of maybe benefited Lando more. Oscar though, I feel terrible for him, and like I genuinely awful. This is embarrassing, and that's why it's embarrassing from McLaren is because everyone can see how upset Oscar was, and that should never have happened in the first place. Then it should have been an easy Oscar win, and it just weren't. They overcomplicated it like they do everything. So ultimately, I'm feeling okay because my driver's the driver leading by 12 points going into the last Grand Prix. But it's still embarrassing from McLaren, and I feel awful for Oscar.
Yeah, this was the first weekend that Lando could have won the championship this weekend if he'd won the race, and it was as simple as that going into it. And even though, as you said, out of the performance of those top three drivers, he wasn't the best. It still was a missed opportunity, and yeah, still should have been so much more for both of them. But we'll get on to the championship battle later on in the video. We're going to kick things off by looking at the rest of the weekend because even though obviously the title challenge obviously dominate the headlines and dominates everyone's thoughts on this weekend, other things did still happen. I mean, Williams was on the podium for one, and obviously that Red Bull second seat is obviously a big issue, and Ferrari, and there is still a lot that happened in the rest of the weekend. And we'll kick things off because it was a sprint weekend with the sprint. First of all, I think we have to say a pretty terrible sprint, and I can't imagine we'll be having another sprint race in Qatar. I'm not quite sure why they chose Qatar again because it was just terrible. I can't remember there being a good sprint race in Qatar. Obviously, I know Oscar getting his first win there was at least some sort of talking point, and obviously last year that last minute switch. But I don't want there to be a Qatar sprint ever again. Basically, look, I don't think there should be a Qatar Grand Prix full stop, especially with this circuit. But a sprint race, when generally sprint races are, I don't think it's controversial to say, I think a bit more boring than the main race because there isn't any pit stop strategy or anything like that. Putting him on the worst circuit, it somewhat worked with Miami, but I don't know if that's been a bit of a fluke. But with Qatar, yeah, it's just the experiment. Just get rid of it. Get rid of it. I think that would be a fair assessment. I don't think there's anyone in the F1 world that is against that. But actually, in regards to sprint, I think the big talking point, other than that championship battle, was Yuki Tsunoda. A very, very positive start to his weekend. In a crucial weekend, it seemed, for him keeping his seat now. All the rumours are, and it might be official by the time you watch this, it probably will be official by the time you watch this, is that he has lost his seat for next year, and he's going to be Red Bull Racing's reserve driver for 2026. I'll get your thoughts on that in a second. But first of all, your thoughts on Yuki Tsunoda out qualifying Max Verstappen. I know it was only sprint qualifying, but I mean, yeah, talk to me about Yuki Tsunoda in that sprint, both in the race and qualifying. Excellent performance. Why haven't we seen more of this?
Yeah, I mean, it had to be, but I think due to Max not even competing with a pole position here, I think that could show exactly why Yuki Tsunoda could outscore him, well, out qualify him, because if the car isn't matched with Max's abilities as much, we never see him really sticking it on pole. So if you're in a car that's, something that probably is fitting better with Yuki's abilities, then and Max may struggle to that, then maybe we will see like fairer competition. And I think it was so close. Max was really struggling at the beginning of this weekend, and yeah, ultimately changed the car a lot. He said, put the old power unit in, and that obviously ended up helping getting a win. Clearly, I think there was a lot more to that win, but yeah, I think it was amazing for Yuki. I mean, great under intense pressure as well. Um, it's a shame in the sprint we don't know if that was orders or Max just flying past them because it's Max Verstappen. But yeah, I think he kind of had to let Max go. It was seemed a pretty simple overtake for Max. But yeah, that's exactly the sort of performance we wish we could have seen so many more times this season. And I don't think he's been given the opportunity to that because of the car situation at Red Bull and the second driver situation, and them never being really in the conversation when what they want in the car. But probably the pressure too of being Max Verstappen's teammate. He's not really delivered that much. So the best time for him to do that, really.
Yeah, obviously, P5 in both formats. I think it was in the end. But yeah, really good performance from Yuki. The rest of the weekend was not that great. I mean, qualifying was not good at all, but he did manage to recover to pick up a point in the actual race. So fair play to Yuki on that one. But as I did mention previously, his time at Red Bull Racing, at least as one of the main drivers, is going to come to an end next year. He is going to be a reserve driver. It's not quite official, but I think that's what everyone seems to be saying. Arvid Lindblad will be going up to VCARB alongside Liam Lawson, and Isaac Hadjar will be promoted to the Red Bull second seat. Now, for me, I for one, I'm really, really sad about this. I think Yuki, deserved the chance. I know there's so much hype about Lindblad, and I know that you shouldn't read too much into F2, but I just think that it's a little bit too early, and maybe I'll come back to eat my words on this one, but I think that Yuki, as you said, hasn't been given a truly fair chance in the Red Bull seat, and I think next year could be a whole different platform for that second Red Bull seat. I think with completely new regulations that might not suit Max completely, and hopefully you think the team will be learning that if we want to have a true constructors challenge, we have to cater for two seats, not just one seat. So I feel like next year that second seat should be a lot easier to manage. And it would have been great to see Yuki in that second seat. Now, I still don't think the door's completely closed because Isaac Hadjar's an incredible talent and he's shown that all this season. But the pressure of that second seat could still come into play, and maybe if Yuki's keeping himself in and around the team in that reserve role, maybe there is still doors to be open for him at the Red Bull stable. I think it could be over for him. But what is your reaction to this news that Yuki is going to lose his seat for next year? And do you think that Liam maybe should have been the one to go, or Do you think Lindblad should be getting promoted up to V Carb, even despite his poor performances in F2? Although he did have a good, I think, recovery in the feature race this weekend. But yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I spoke about how I think Lindblad was going to be that seat in Racing Bulls. I thought he was going to come in, so I'm right. But yeah, I think you could say, you know, it's too early for him. We said that about Kimi Antonelli, and I do think obviously Red Bull can be quite a toxic environment for a young driver to come into, but we've seen that with Isaac Hadjar coming in, and look at him now, he's already been promoted to the senior team. I think young drivers are just getting younger and younger, and I think that's dividends to the fact that they're just getting better at the same time and at a much younger age because of the sort of categories they're racing in. Yes, he's not done amazing F2. This hasn't really even contested for that champion like ship, but neither did really Kimi Antonelli. He had some great races, and I think that's what Arvin Lindblad had done. Same with Ollie Behrman too. They never really were gonna win it, but no one ever looked past them because they've shown their ability in multiple races. And like you said, I think it was P17 to P4 this weekend in F2
Yeah.
for Lindblad. So yeah, and also like I'm not again the most patriotic, but I'm excited to have another young British driver on the grid. I think it's really good for British sport in general, and I think it's another sort of we look at the British drivers on the grid. You've got Lando Norris, he's going for his championship this weekend. You've got George Russell, who, if he has the right car, is more than going for it. You've got a 7-time world champion in Lewis Hamilton and two young ones in Ollie Behrman and Arvin Lindblad. They are the future of the sport, and two that I have in very high regards of, obviously in big academies of Ferrari and Red Bull. Well, if them teams can give them the car, they could very much go for a title as well. So yeah, that's really exciting. But ultimately, I just felt like he would come in. I knew they would drop either Yuki or Liam. And to be fair to Liam, like off the evidence they had, and I don't think if you apply context to it as well, you would say, well, Liam's been a much better driver. I mean, if you look at Yuki's results from when he was in that seat, I would argue they were better. But if you're only as good as your last race, and for Yuki, these last few races and this season, it's been poor. And I don't think that due to his own abilities, and I think it is more down to that car. But you can't argue with the facts, and that is Liam's had a better season than him. I'm sure if Yuki could have chose, if he in which car he would have chose the Racing Bulls because he had some decent results before he got moved back, well, up to the Red Bull team. But yeah, I'm not shocked. I do believe, like you said, that there's still a chance for him to come back in. I think if Lindblad has a really big struggle at the start of next year, or Liam, or Hadjar, you could see there being a space not for not Kimmy, Yuki. Yeah, I think there'll be a chance, and also his relations to Honda still being an engine supplier for Aston Martin. And could be for various other cars in the future. I think that'll help him. And yeah, he's a good driver, and I think he deserves to be in F1. I just think there was no room for him this year, and I hope this isn't the end of Kim. Why did you call him Kimi Antonelli? Yuki Tsunoda in F1.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
See him back.
I think that I really want to see him back. I think he deserves the chance, and I think that, and I think that if Liam had been given the full season at Red Bull, he'd be the one out of the sport. So yeah, it's incredibly harsh. I feel like on Yuki to completely just cut him out of F1 just for this. But hoping this situation is like, hopefully, and I'm really hoping that Red Bull look out the best for him in terms of finding him another seat on the grid, whether that is a Cadillac or an Audi or someone like that, or an Alpine even. If they are able to work their magic like they did with Alex to get him another seat and preserve his stock and give Yuki the opportunity to maybe race in a couple of other series and do a couple of other events like Alex did, because I feel like the way Red Bull treated Alex Albon after his they kicked him out of Red Bull, I still think he should have got on that AlphaTauri seat in 2021. I think that would have been incredible to see. But I think that the way they treated him and helped him after that and helped his career was incredible, and they didn't have to do it. And I really hope they do that for Yuki. Time will tell. Time will tell. And as you said, it might not be over for him, even in the Red Bull stable. Lindblad is terrible. I don't expect him to be. I think say that with Kimi, I thought he should have stayed at Williams. So what do I know? Or not stayed at Williams. He didn't, but gone to Williams this year instead of Mercedes, and clearly that was not the right decision. So what do I know? Anyway, we'll move on from Yuki Tsunoda and his weekend and on to... There's not much else to say about the sprint, so we'll move on to the actual qualifying and race. A couple of talking points. Obviously, Pierre Gasly getting into Q3 once again. Very good performance from him. Ahead of even a Ferrari, well, both Ferraris, which is pretty shocking to say, in the worst car on the grid. So just a little bit of Gasly hype there, even though he did crash out in the race. But anyway, elsewhere in qualifying, Isaac Hadjar, proving that he's meriting that Red Bull promotion with a lovely P6. Obviously, Carlos Sainz getting into Q3 once again. Alex Albon, I mean, it's still not really being talked about. I'm still not seeing it talked about anywhere about his struggles compared to Sainz. Once again, another weekend where Sainz is just on the money. We'll get onto him in a second. But yeah, any other thoughts from qualifying? Obviously, excluding the championship contenders.
Just Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
I thought, again, really poor in both qualifying. And it's so frustrating because it's the same talk again after in the media and he says, I'm not good enough. And it's like, pick me, choose me. I'm like, Lewis, no, like, you're a 7-time world champion, mate, don't speak like this. But I've just find it really hard for him because it clearly is an issue with the car. And we've seen Charles Leclerc really struggle. I mean, starting behind Pierre Gasly, new low. I'm just hoping they can have a high this weekend, ready going into the new regulations. And yeah, I hope we just have like multiple cars fighting next year, and I hope Lewis and Charles are one of them, because it's just awful at Ferrari, awful. I mean, if Ferrari were in the Drivers' Championship, they'd be fourth. They'd be below Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, and Oscar Piastri. Their combined total would be still below the top 3 drivers, which is insane. So, yeah, I hope they'll be on the up, but I think this is a year to forget for Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, a stinky qualifying performance, and not much better in the race, to be honest. So we'll move on to the actual race itself and talking points. We're going to start off with Kimi Antonelli. Now, overall, actually, a really, really good weekend from Kimi. Really strong once again. Arguably the better of the 2 Mercedes, and just another weekend where, compared to Russell, he is showing that he's got the ability next year to really fight with him. If Mercedes have the car to compete at the top, and that's what everyone seems to expect, he's showing that he could be in contention for potentially a world drivers championship next year. I feel like that's what we're seeing from Kimi in these last few races. Really strong into his rookie year. But obviously the one talking point that has made the headlines about Kimi this weekend was that, I think it was final lap, maybe second to last lap, where he made a mistake, went off, and Norris overtook him to claim P4 instead of P5. Obviously huge implications, even though it's just 2 points on the championship battle. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on, obviously, that. I mean, I don't really know what thoughts you could have on it, other than just being like, yeah, he made a mistake. But yeah, just the whole drama around it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, he's a Mercedes driver. I don't understand what in what world they would want to help McLaren. Obviously, they have the same, a Mercedes engine. Like you said, the McLaren F1 team. Why, in what world do they have allegiance to McLaren, especially Kimi as well? Maybe if it was George, I'd be like, okay, that's good from you, George. But because it's Kimi, he's actually like he loves Max. He looks up to Max, and we see that often outside of racing. That them two are very good friends. So I don't understand how it would be purposeful. I think it's kind of frustrating because we look back to where he kept Max behind him for like what was it, 10 laps on when Max was on fresher tyres, and Kimi was able to keep up that. But ultimately, you have Lando Norris on fresher tyres chasing him down for about 10 laps within his DRS. I don't know what the DRS did that race, because Lando would come around Lando behind, and obviously all that pushing, and also the chance of him maybe even overtaking Sainz with potential problems. I think it ultimately built up, and the car just snapped, and he went off. And my thoughts on the aftermath of that is thank you, Kimi, my goat. But ultimately, I thought it was poor reaction from Red Bull. Like we spoke about it before we started filming, like GP. I think like Max's engineer, he obviously hadn't seen it, and obviously that's massive. That extra two Lando's got, so he's hurt and he comes out instantly. But it's Helmut Marko who had chance to see it, review it, and still come out to the media and speak badly about Kimi, which has obviously led to clearly a lot of hatred and death threats going to him, which is just ridiculous. Anyways, like even Max doesn't care that much like about this championship. And I just think, yeah, poor Kimi. But for me, I think it is unacceptable, Red Bull's reaction to this, and they've released a statement that actually doesn't even feature the word sorry. It actually features Lando Norris's name in the statement more times than it says sorry. So I think that ultimately shows, I guess, how sorry they are. And Helmut Marko has come out and apologised for the second incident not being him just letting Lando pass, but the first time he could have put up more of a fight. They're not your drivers. They are not your drivers, Helmut Marko. So it's not up to you to decide that. It was never going to be Antonelli's race the first time Lando went past him. So why would he fight Lando and save his he was fighting the people behind him? So yeah, I just thought it was a crazy situation. I don't think it's good enough from Red Bull. But yeah, that's the sort of team Red Bull are, and that's sort of a reason, mind games, and probably how they've come back into this championship, and how they're so vocal about McLaren. It's made McLaren second guess decisions such as this weekend, and that is due to mind games from Red Bull. So sometimes whether you think it's sportsmanship, or is friendly fire, or it's just plain, just like rudeness. That's up to you to make. But in my opinion, it works. So good for them. But I still don't think it's not on really, especially from Kimi Antonelli. He's not, freshly 19 years old. I mean, they wouldn't have wanted their teenager Max experiencing that sort of hatred. But yeah, that's just the sport at the end of the day, and they've yeah accepted that they were wrong. So got to move on.
Yeah, I think a little bit actually. Thinking about it, I think a little bit of it comes from the commentary actually, and also the narrative that was sort of spun from the broadcast that that Mercedes would help McLaren, and I feel like this is not something that has really been talked about or thought about. Two teams that people think that would be the case on the grid would be RB and Red Bull, obviously. Whereas everyone else, I don't think that's ever been really suggested. Whereas it felt this weekend, and I was watching on the F1 broadcaster, not Sky Sports, but they were talking about, oh, do you think that Mercedes, would help McLaren, and they're talking about that, and it's like, how is that a conversation? I don't get that narrative doesn't exist. And these badge on their car if they want to. They don't. They've chosen not to, and none of the customer teams do anymore. But they can, but they don't, because there's no relationship basically in terms of that. So it's yeah, they are completely separate teams. It's not the same as Red Bull and RB, who even they try to claim they are completely separate teams, and they sort of have to be in a sense. But we all know that there's obviously an actual relationship there, and it's not even the same as Haas and Ferrari, where there's more of a technical relationship there, or even how it will be with Alpine and Mercedes next year. This is, it is basically just they give the engine and that's it, and that's, yes, they used to have a special agreement, and they've had an arrangement for quite a long time, but no, that is never ever happening. That was ridiculous, because Mercedes they're still in the fight for P2. Now, yeah, they basically wrapped it up, but before this weekend they hadn't wrapped it up. So, yeah, ridiculous. That's just crazy.
Even in even in regards to like a personal standpoint, like obviously we see George Russell, and I think that would be funny if he just let Lando by next weekend, because one, he hates Max, and two, like, Lando's his best friend. But in what world would any competitive athlete have that mindset? And also the fact that, I think this with a lot of the drivers on the grid right now, including Charles, including, George, especially them two. They're drivers who have been held at the same level as Lando Norris, except Lando Norris has been given this championship winning car this season. That's the difference. And he's been in a team that has who's able to give him that. Them two haven't had that. And why would they, when they have a driver who's on the same caliber, I would say, as them, want to win the championship? It'd be so much easier if Max went and he's a world champion, and they won't want that. George has the exact same amount of starts as Lando Norris in a race, and now he's a championship winner, and George is nowhere near touching that at the minute. So I think from that regard, it's just not a mindset that even any athlete would want to even suggest it. I think it's wild, but I can't say anything because I'm sat here in a McLaren jumper and a Mercedes hat, so maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just reactionary. I get it from GP to just be like, well, what's he doing? I think that's just a normal comment that you would say over the radio. I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that's a bad thing to say. I think, heat at the moment, that's fine. It's just everything that's happened after is just, it's just stupid. I think that's the only way to describe it. It's just stupid. And it's taken away from, well, not an incredible race, but a very, very interesting race, and what is, in store for next week. And we have to talk about Carlos Sainz again. I mean, what an incredible end to the year he's having. I mean, I'm incredibly excited to see what he can achieve with. I spoke about in the past few years. It seems to be coming to fruition. Yeah, and Carlos Sainz, I mean, at the start of the season, you may be thinking, why, obviously, no one doubting that he was still a great driver, but thinking, well, he's on the sort of same level as Alex Albon. Why was James Vowles meeting him in hotel rooms and basically, being his, I don't even know what relationship they had, but just all that stuff. Why were they going so extra for him? We're seeing it now. I don't think there's any doubt that he is showing once again why he is, the class in the midfield. And I mean, to get a second podium in a year for Williams, the first time in over a decade, I think it is, that a Williams driver has done that. I mean, obviously I think there's a little bit of luck. I think it was sort of from the pit stops and stuff that it happened, and obviously with McLaren doing McLaren. But still, you've got to be that, and it was a great qualifying as well. So, and Albon P11, not even in the points. Talk to me about Carlos Sainz. I know we've talked about him a lot in the past few weeks, but once again, brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me at the start of the season, if there was a bet to put on that, Carlos Sainz would have 2 more podiums than Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari, I wouldn't have wanted to take that bet. He's been immense, and I don't think that has started straight away. I think he had a really bad start to the season, due to things when it came to luck, especially. I don't think it was really no fault of his own, but is still ahead of him, and that is due to that start that Albon had, and Sainz wasn't as lucky at times. But luck comes and goes for everyone, and like you said, he was a bit lucky this weekend with the safety car, but wasn't everyone, and he took advantage of that, and he could have well and truly been caught up by Lando, and he had an issue at the end, and he still didn't. So yeah, exactly. He's shown his class there. I think we've always known the sort of driver that Carlos Sainz is in a mid-table team. I think when we seen him at McLaren, we seen it still then, except at this point he's gone to Ferrari. He's won races. He knows what it's like to be a race winner. He's grown up and he's come back to a mid-table team, and he's just another class because of everything he's learned over them years. He's able to apply that to, a high pressure moment like it was this weekend. That was probably the most tense moment, was that, once Lando got past Kimi, was he able to get past Carlos? It was coming down that gap. Only had a lap to do it, but it was coming down, and in a much faster car in a McLaren, Lando should be favourite there. But Carlos kept it together, and that's exactly why we hold him at such high regard. And I think it's absolutely crazy that next season we are going to see Williams and Ferrari next to each other in the pit lane, which should be funny. Especially after he got kicked out of the team, he's now going to be just right next to them in Williams' garage. But I think as well, James Vowles, I've rated him ever since he's come in, really. I think he's done an insane job with the team, and I think it's only going to get better with the new regulations. He spoke about how, last year didn't matter, this year doesn't matter, but it's 2026 where he wants to be able to see, changes within the team. We're already seeing. I'd be scared if I was any other team on the grid right now about that Williams team, because yes, Carlos Sainz, insane driver, and if he has a car, he has already proved that he can go and do it. But also Alex Albon, if you give him a car, I can't wait to see Alex Albon in a car that is proven, and that he could potentially be, go and win races themselves. I'm really excited for him to be back on top where he should be, because I do think he's a class driver and he deserves to be in one of the better teams. So Williams back to where they were, to be honest. Well, not where they were, but getting there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so excited to see that battle, especially if it is the Mercedes power unit is so far ahead of the rest that it is basically the Mercedes teams that are fighting for the championship, which it could be. And if it's those four teams, and I am including Alpine in this very, very stupidly, it could be, or naively maybe to say, but if it is Mercedes, McLaren, Williams, and maybe Alpine, you never know. You never know. I do think that what will help Williams so much is having Sainz is so perfect for them compared to, say, Alpine, who may be, they're not in a similar position this year, but in terms of team size, well, Alpine are a bigger team. They've got more facilities than Williams. They are actually almost, from a setup point of view, a better team than Williams. I know that doesn't show on track at the moment, but the thing that Williams have is they have Carlos Sainz, who, as you said, because of his experience at Ferrari, if Williams are next year able to start and be competing for race wins, they've got a driver who knows how to deal with that instantly. Whereas Alpine, their experienced main driver Pierre Gasly, he doesn't have that experience, because even he has time. He had time at a top team in Red Bull. He wasn't competing for wins, and that was absolutely ages ago, and he did terribly. He doesn't, even as much as I could say that I think that Pierre can be on a similar level to Carlos. He doesn't have that experience, and it will take him time to get up to speed. We've seen that with Lando. We've seen that with Oscar, that it takes time to learn how to compete for a championship. We've seen that with Carlos. When Ferrari had a race-winning car in 2022, he was nowhere to be seen compared to Charles. Charles had that experience already in 2019. With when Ferrari were able to win races, he built that experience up in 2019. Carlos, in that first half of 2022, from Ferrari with the quickest car, he wasn't winning races, but he gradually built up that experience, and by the end of his time at Ferrari, he was able to know he could deal with that situation. and yes, Pierre's won a race, but like it's not in the same situation. It's not in the same way in that Carlos won his races. So yeah, I think that this Carlos Sainz signing is really proving to be absolutely crucial for Williams. And yeah, another podium, unbelievable stuff from him. But now we will move on to the actual main talking point. It's taken us 38 minutes to get here, but now we've got to talk about, obviously, first of all, Max Verstappen winning the race. A great performance from Max. He didn't really put a foot wrong in what wasn't the quickest car this weekend. I think that's very fair to say. He wasn't the quickest driver this weekend. I think that's fair to say. But he did what he needed to do. He put himself in that position, and I don't think we have ever dealt with that Max wouldn't put himself in that position. He learned a lot from the sprint, and yeah, just showed his experience in class. Very good from Max, but it was handed to him. It was a result that was handed to him because of McLaren doing more McLaren stuff. Now, we have to talk about that. Amy, obviously, as a McLaren fan, that decision not to box on lap 7, there's been a lot of speculation about why they chose to do it. They've come out and defended their reasoning, and there's the argument that they were the team in front, and they don't know what other teams are going to do, and there's comparisons to Lewis back in 2021 and in Hungary. I mean, what do you make of it, and how stupid were McLaren? Why did they do it, basically? Do you think? Oh, where's Amy gone? is the question. she heard that about McLaren and thought, I'm gone. Yeah, she's back now. I think. Wait a second. I don't know. Oh. Wait a second. I'm not sure if you're... Oh, yeah, you are back. Okay. Yes. Basically, why did McLaren do it, do you think?
Well, there's a lot of factors to that. I think it's easy for us all to sit here and look at McLaren and laugh at them because obviously they made a decision. Yes, they can say it was hard for us because we were at the front of the of the grid and we didn't know what anyone else would do, but everyone else did do that. They all came in. And that shows that, yes, even though Max came in and he had to do maybe something different to be able to get this win, everyone else still believed that was the best strategy. So they did know. They just didn't want to risk it. And yes, that is because they have this whole prophecy of a two-driver team, and set a precedent, and they have to follow that now. And I will defend McLaren here. Even though I think, what the hell? I wouldn't do that. That is a precedent they have set. And if we look at any other scenario of that, of what they could have done, they still wouldn't win. They still wouldn't. They'd still be argued against for not being fair. Let's look at all the options. So, okay, let's say they double stacked. Okay, Oscar, first in, first out. Lando had to compromise his race by doing that. He then, okay, in hindsight, that's great that he'd probably get out still just behind Max, but we don't know. There was going to be so much traffic coming into that pit lane, and, who knows what would have happened. Someone could have gone into him. His race could have been ended. We don't know. In hindsight, this is great that, he probably would have been fine, but we don't know. So that would have been favouritism in that situation. If Oscar had come in and Lando had stayed out, again, Oscar's going on the favourable, obviously, strategy. He's going to be able to get way out, and Lando's going to somehow have to defend with older tyres for a 25-lap stint. And, Oscar's well ahead, and favouritism to Oscar. Lando pits in another world. Lando is able to have the priority, some might argue fairly, because he's championship leader, but Oscar was the better driver in this race and had been all weekend. But Lando comes in, he's able to have the priority, because I will say, as a Lando fan in the last few races, where yes, Oscar and Lando haven't been in this. He's been able to have that. So who's to say that Lando, who's right behind Oscar in this race, is not allowed to have that priority when Oscar's had it the last few? So Lando comes in, he's the favourite, he could win the championship this weekend. It makes a bit more sense, but they don't do that either because it would be favouring Lando. And I get that. In what world do McLaren win? I can't see any world because of the themselves. Would I, if they hadn't set that so strongly, they've literally said they would rather Max win it than compromise either of their drivers. Crazy statement, by the way. I think, yes, any normal team would. It's hard because Oscar was clearly the better driver this weekend, but you've got a driver who could win the championship that weekend. Why wouldn't you give him the priority? But I will defend them and say, they couldn't have won, to be honest, with that situation because people, and I just feel the person I feel absolutely awful for is Oscar because that was his to win this weekend. I think if I was on that pit wall, I would have said both of you come in and we'll just have to risk it with Lando. And it was Oscar's to win, and I feel awful for him. And that is actually why I've decided if it's not going to be Lando, I want it to be Oscar because, yeah, it's just not fair in the slightest. And they need to just, yes, you can be a two-driver team, but you don't have to follow them principles so strongly. People say, stand firm on your decisions, bring Oscar in or bring Lando in and stand on that because whoever you back is whoever you're backing. It's no one else's decision. Yes, it doesn't look great and it probably would make another driver feel bad, but it's no one else's decision but your own. Be a big team that you are, and the team that's won the be the team that wins the drivers and stand firm on your decision. Don't care what anyone says. But I feel like they're just like their drivers in caring too much what everyone thinks. Don't care.
Yeah, for me, I really view it as just run the best race you can possible. I don't get why you wouldn't do that from each garage, and each garage should be able to go, what do we think the actual best thing to do in this scenario is? And for Oscar, it would have been to pit, and for Lando, it would have been to double stack as well. Now, yes, he could have, look, things could have happened, but that could have happened to any other driver on the grid because every team double stacked. So yeah, I think that it's just complicating things for no reason. They just need to have their whole thing is we go racing, we go racing, we go racing or whatever. Well, go racing by
You
doing
didn't race
the
at all.
quickest lap, the quickest race you can. That's how you do racing. Is you do it as you complete the race as quick as you can, and the quickest strategy, which every team on the grid knew because they all came in and then they came out and I think quite a few of them have said before afterwards, sorry, that they knew in their head lap 7 was the earliest we could pit to then go to the 25 and 20 or it was 25 was the maximum stint length, and they knew that lap 7 that was the earliest we can achieve that and then just have our two things after that. And if there was going to be a safety car, lap 7 would be the earliest we could pit to do that strategy, and we would do it. And I think it was Lauren Meckies that said, well, yeah, like lap 7, that was when we'd said beforehand, lap 7's the earliest we'll do it. And as soon as that safety car came out, oh yeah, we know we're going to be coming in. Like, it wasn't a question. We'd already decided that beforehand. And yes, it was lucky that happened, but that's what we talk about. That was what we planned. That was the quickest race strategy. And yeah, it was just they just complicate things, and they do it so often. McLaren, we've said this so many times this season, that they try to make things not complicated by having this thing of no, we're not going to prioritize anyone. But by doing that, they've just made it so complicated that they can't even run their optimal race strategy. And it's a mess, and I don't know what they're going to do because I feel like they're going to have some big team meetings probably before Abu Dhabi, going like, okay, we need to get around this, we need to think about something, and they're just going to complicate it again, and just I don't know. I also do feel bad for them in a sense that they are the only team on the grid that has this scenario, and that if any other team had done this, I mean, no one would be talking about it, and they are the only team that come under scrutiny for this because but there's a reason for that, and it's because they were performing at the highest. They are the world champions. They should be held to the highest standards, and time again, they've sort of shown that they have the quickest car, but they don't have the quickest team, in a weird sense. Even though obviously they are the quickest team, but if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's just a mess, and for Oscar, it's so unfair on him. And you can see how devastated. I think he knows that his championship's over. And we will talk more about the championship on Thursday for our Abu Dhabi preview, the final race of the year. But I just want to get your quick thoughts. I mean, going into that final race, I think that before this, we sort of thought Max was, he's in with a chance, but something crazy has to happen. Now, something sort of crazy's happened. It's halved the gap, 12 points. Your early thoughts right now, what do you think happens? And how are you feeling going into that final race? Obviously, as a Lando fan.
I mean, I don't want to watch it. That's how I feel. Is that I was saying to Seb, like, I don't want to watch it. I'll find out the results, and then if it's Lando, I'll be gutted that I'm watching live. but if it's Max, it gives me time to process it. Obviously, I'll be watching it. But oh gosh, it's horrible. If for me as a McLaren fan as well, I think it's pretty simple. The message going into it is Oscar, Lando, give your absolute best this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Don't even think about each other. Just do what you can do to get it as high as possible, and then have the best race. But if they have an advantage in this, is that they are the two in it, and they can help each other. And if it comes to a scenario where Oscar's lost it, realistically, that Oscar can help Lando, we want you to help him. For Max, he has absolutely nothing. It's 12 points for Lando going in to this. It's an advantage that he has. But it's horrible because anything could happen. And we know very much well that Max Verstappen's look round Abu Dhabi is pretty good, especially when it's a title decider. And that makes me nervous. And also the fact that, I don't like to get superstitious, but I am quite a superstitious person, but Lando Norris has won 11 races in his F1 career, and he's never repeatedly won at the same circuit. So he's obviously won Abu Dhabi last year, and he's never won twice at a circuit yet. He's always been a different one. So he'd have to break that record where he'd be able to get 2 wins at a circuit. He doesn't have to. He can finish on the podium, but just for the safest route possible, please win. But yeah, it could be crazy. Literally anything could happen. And it could be Oscars. It really could be. Who knows? But Max and Lando go into each other. Oscar wins. Oh. No, we hate to see it.
I mean, that for me, that would be the dream scenario. Max and Lando make contact lap 1, turn 1, and they're both trying to recover through the pack, trying to make something happen. A bit like Alonso and Webber in 2010. That for me would be the dream scenario, and would make that such an exciting race. Especially if Max is ahead of Lando and they're both trying to get through the pack. Oh, that would be amazing. Imagine as well the controversy with RB helping out the drivers, and then Mercedes go, do you know what? We are going to help Lando. And then Kimi gets out of the way for Lando. And I can see it. And anyway, I'm sure we're going to go into it all on Thursday. Our predictions as well. Who we think will be the World Drivers' Champion for 2025. I think that's everything to say from Qatar this weekend. Overall, still not a big fan of Qatar as a country, but more so as the Grand Prix. Anyway, we will move on from that and just end the podcast before we say anything else. Thanks for joining me, Amy, and we'll see you on Thursday for, as I said, our preview of the final race of the year. We'll see you then. So thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.